Nightmares Unveiled, 12 Sinister Rules of a Haunted Diner in Rural Arkansas exposed after midnight. The Midnight Diner in rural Arkansas was the kind of place where nightmares came to roost. With its flickering neon sign casting an eerie glow against peeling walls, it drew whispers from locals who dared to venture inside after dark. The air buzzed with an unsettling anticipation, a malevolent energy only the bravest acknowledged. For Sarah, a hard-working waitress and single mother, that first night shift felt like a last resort, a dive into darkness she couldn't escape. Clutching the dented order pad, Sarah pushed through the diner's heavy glass doors. The musty scent of stale coffee mixed with grease clung to her. She felt the weight of eyes watching from the shadows, patrons already seated in weathered booths, their faces illuminated by an unnaturally haunting light. As she took their orders, every polite smile turned into a mask hiding secrets. There was something off about them, a strange glimmer that sent chills dancing down her spine. Suddenly, Sarah remembered the whispers of the 12 Sinister Rules. Break one, and it'll summon the darkness, they warned. But bills needed to be paid, and she left the comfort of her crumbling trailer, the silence of her shattered home, her husband's absence gnawing at her like an unsolved puzzle. She couldn't afford to be afraid. As the clock crept closer to midnight, a foreboding air filled the diner. The cheerful clinks of cutlery twisted into a low hum, the sound morphing into something dark and threatening. The sheriff, a handsome yet unnervingly charming figure, lingered at the counter. His gaze bore into her, an invasive probe that made her skin crawl. "You came here looking for something, didn't you?" he asked, voice smooth as syrup. Dread coiled in her stomach. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." In that moment, the lights flickered ominously. With each pulse, the diner felt alive, breathing in sync with her racing heart. A low growl resonated from the kitchen, a sound reminiscent of her husband's last desperate breaths. Her pulse quickened as unease burrowed deeper into her mind. Had she broken one of the rules? For a fleeting instant, she thought about escaping, making a run for it. But the shadow beneath the table wrapped around her leg, a swirling darkness she recognized, tied to moments of betrayal and pain, pulled her closer to the truth. The sheriff's smile turned predatory, every moment gliding closer to midnight, thickening the tension. The diner held its breath, and she felt it, the weight of countless eyes watching, waiting. With a trembling hand, Sarah reached for the order pad, her heart pounding as she made a sarcastic jab at a peculiar customer's request. The moment the words left her mouth, the laughter in the room choked into suffocating silence. Shadows danced, and for a split second, the diner seemed like a cavern of lost souls. As the clock struck 12, a chill swept through the diner, wrapping around her like a shroud. She stood on the edge of a precipice, the whispers growing louder, urging her to contemplate the darkest corners of her own soul. The question loomed: what truth would she unearth as the lights flickered and the darkness beckoned? Would pulling at the threads of the diner's history free her from the chains of her past, or drag her deeper into a nightmare from which there would be no awakening? The diner shuddered as the clock's chime echoed. Shadows twisted around Sarah, morphing into scenes from her past, snapshots of laughter, love, and betrayal. The memories sliced through the stillness, sharp and biting. Faces that had once filled her life now haunted her, swirling like phantoms. "What have you done?" hissed a voice from the dark corner, a familiar tone that made her heart race. It was her husband, or at least the essence of him, lurking just out of sight. She blinked, and he was gone, replaced by the leering sheriff, who stood closer now, his grin glinting like a blade. "You think you're here to serve," he said, stepping forward, the atmosphere thick with dread. "But this place serves you. It knows what you need. Her instincts screamed to run, but where? The diner was a trap, a labyrinth of tangled memories. The walls felt alive, pulsating with the weight of secrets buried under linoleum flooring and rusty metal chairs. The other patrons shifted in their seats, eyes vacant yet piercing, as if they could read her thoughts. The sheriff leaned over the counter, proximity sending a shiver down her spine. You see, breaking those rules has a price. But revealing truths? That comes with its own reward. What could he mean? As he spoke, the lights flickered again, plunging the diner into darkness, only to be momentarily illuminated by a flash of lightning outside that cast eerie shadows across the walls. In that heartbeat, Sarah caught glimpses of despair etched in the faces of the diner's confessions of their own haunted past. They were trapped like her, caught in a web spun by their own choices. Show them. The sheriff's voice boomed. She knew what he meant. The diner would reveal the root of their sins, the unvarnished truth that clung like grease to the grimy floor. Without thinking, Sarah reached out, desperation clawing at her throat. I need to know. The air crackled, a rush of wind swirling through the diner, carrying with it whispers of forgotten dreams. Pictures exploded in her mind, her husband's ghost looming, the last argument replaying like a broken record. Her heart raced, she could almost feel him, his anger mixed with sorrow, pulling her towards regret. Let it go, a soft voice broke through, uncertain yet familiar. It was the old woman who sat alone at the corner booth, her frail frame almost swallowed by shadows. You can't change the past. You must confront it, or it will consume you. A chill twisted around Sarah's spine, but there was a flicker of hope igniting within. Could confronting her truth free her from this nightmare? Or would she spiral deeper into the abyss? The laughter turned manic as the clock struck 1, the room echoing with it a cacophony of torment. Sarah steadied herself, mustering courage against the tide of despair flooding her. Her eyes darted back to the sheriff, each tick of the clock felt like an omen. Your choice, Sarah, he whispered, his voice a melodic lullaby twisted with malice. Dare to uncover the darkness within, or remain shackled to your fears. As the room seemed to swell, Sarah felt the weight of eyes burdening her. Time hung suspended. Biting her lip, she made her choice to dive deeper into the unfolding darkness, seeking to understand, to confront. But what awaited her on that edge? What memories would she unearth? And as she stepped forward, the realization hit her, the rules didn't just bind her, they promised liberation, or damnation. Suddenly, the lights went out again, and the diner's whispers rose to a crescendo, the oppressive tension urging her to make her move. What lurked in the shadows, waiting to be released? The world collapsed into darkness as the lights flickered before finally dying, plunging Sarah into a suffocating void of silence. The only sound echoing in her ears was the relentless ticking of the clock, a heartbeat in the gloom. A cold sweat trickled down her spine, and the air buzzed with tension, making it hard to breathe. Sarah, a voice whispered, so close it sent chills down her arms. It was the old woman, but the words sounded strangely warped. Were they meant for her, or were they simply echoes of nightmarish hopes lost in the diner's twisted fabric? Show them. Show them. The sheriff's laughter cranked up in pitch, spiraling around the diner like a cyclone. It didn't sound like fun, it sounded like a warning. Sarah stumbled backward, her heart hammering against her ribcage, the walls closing in on her. In the enveloping darkness, a flicker of light illuminated the corner booth briefly, the old woman's eyes glimmering with a knowing intensity. Face it, she urged, her voice steady like an anchor in a storm. Only then can you be free. But what did freedom mean in a place that thrived on their fears? Her thoughts raced as she fought to quell the terror bubbling in her stomach. Each second dragged by, and then it hit her, a memory surged forward more vivid than the rest. She remembered the argument with her husband, the bitterness coated in spite. Words like knives, and her refusal to apologize, clashed with the chaos in her heart. It consumed her now. She had to see it, had to confront the wreckage that had become her life. Now another spark of illumination revealed the other diners, their faces twisted in ghostly expressions, bearing the weight of their own guilt. Fragments of laughter and screams bounced from one face to another, painting a bizarre tapestry of regret. "Show us the truth," they chorused, their voices a haunting symphony, as they leaned in closer, revealing cracks in their masks. The lights flickered again, revealing fleeting glimpses of their hidden horrors, accidents, betrayals. A woman with a tear-streaked face, a man with hands stained crimson. Their stories interwove like a macabre quilt, each patchwork a reminder of the rules broken. She felt her own guilt bubbling at the surface, threatening to spill out. "Am I next?" she gasped, looking into the sheriff's predatory gaze. "Is this my punishment?" "Your own sins are what bind you here," he sneered, vanishing into the void as the light blinked out once more. Suddenly, the old woman's frail hand reached out across the darkness, and though it trembled, there was a fierce strength that pulsed from it. "You have to see," she urged, her voice a blend of warmth and urgency. The shadows thickened, and against all reason, Sarah stepped closer, lured by the gravity of her own truth. "What must I face?" she cried, desperation coating her words as all the collective agony crashed around her. "Everything," came the answer, resonating through the room. As merciless silence enveloped her, her worst fears rose up from the depths of her mind, taking shape, clawing their way into the forefront. The horror sat poised to unveil itself, the deeper truth behind her anguish and the rules that shackled them all. Then the clock's foreboding chime interrupted her, resonating within the walls of the diner, each note heavier than the last. And before Sarah could comprehend, the lights flickered once more, illuminating the patrons again. With sinister grins, they leaned in, their secrets ready to be unleashed. What terrible truths lay in wait, hidden in the illustrations of their faces? As shadows danced around her yet again, Sarah had to wonder, was she really ready to unveil the darkness that gripped her soul? Or would she be consumed like those before her by the very memories she sought to confront? The moment the lights flickered, Sarah felt every heartbeat echo in her ears. Her breath quickened, the weight of countless eyes locking onto her like predators waiting to strike. She stood rooted in place, unable to move as the sinister smiles of the diner patrons stretched wide, revealing teeth like jagged stones. The real horror wasn't just their expressions, it was the knowing. They were all aware of something she wasn't. "Show us," they whispered in low, gravelly tones that danced around her. "Show us the darkness in you." The old woman's voice cut through the cries, her fingers trembling as she reached out toward Sarah. "You must look deeper." Her face flickered in and out of visibility, a beacon of fragile hope amidst the gathering storm. As the shadows coalesced, Sarah felt an icy grip around her heart. The memories slipped through her mind like an avalanche, each one a jagged shard pushing its way to the surface. The arguments, the betrayals, the lies, they were all there, waiting to be dragged from the depths. "Let it out," one of the diners hissed, his eyes glinting like knives. "You can't hide. We are all here because of you." "Because of me?" Her voice trembled. She could barely process their madness but felt their fury burn like a brand against her skin. The walls of the diner seemed to close in closer, the air thickening with an oppressive weight, suffocating her spirit. Suddenly, the clock chimed again, each toll reverberating through her bones. What would it reveal? The old woman's eyes locked onto hers, urging her to understand the memories the shadows were clamoring to show her were never meant to be buried. They were part of her, a twisted tapestry woven into her very essence. "See them." The others beckoned, their voices rising to a crescendo. And then, like a horror show, scenes began to unfold in the dark. A young woman standing in a field, screaming as a vehicle sped away. A child crumpling to the floor in heart-wrenching silence. Sarah's heart sank and lurched as she recognized each moment, felt each instance, and tasted the bitterness of unforgiveness. "That's you," the sheriff shouted, his laughter weaving in and out, wrapping her in a sinister embrace. "You let them all down. You chose wrong. No. The denial clawed at her throat but was quickly drowned out by a cacophony of laughter that filled the diner, rattling the windows. The old woman's figure wavered before her as though struggling against the oppressive weight of the room. Face it. The pain won't disappear on its own, she urged, desperation clawing in the old woman's voice. You must take responsibility. Each revelation cut deeper, revealing layers of guilt that Sarah had carefully wrapped around herself. They were imprinted on her soul, chiseled into the very fabric of who she was. Just as she was about to scream, to shout that she was more than her mistakes, the last flicker of light revealed a mirror in the corner booth. The reflection looked back at her, not just her physical self but the swirling darkness of all that she had done. The anger, the shame, the tears, it was all there, encased in her eyes. Sarah, it whispered, pushing her closer to madness. What will you do? Every heartbeat felt razor-sharp as her resolve faltered. She wanted to run, to escape, but the shadowy figures raked at her sanity, tightening their grip. Will you confront your truth? They taunted, their expressions warped like twisted caricatures. The panic rose as she faced the mirror while they chanted, "Welcome to the diner of regrets." And just like that, everything went dark again. Only the echo of her own breaths remained, heavy and echoing through the void. In the suffocating silence, a new thought emerged, sharper than the others, a realization that lay coiled just beneath the surface. What if confronting their darkness meant unleashing something far worse than her nightmares? What if she was not the only one trapped in this cycle of horror? With the shadows pulsing around her, Sarah braced herself for the revelation that awaited. Each second was laden with dread, pushing her toward an inevitable truth. What awaited her next as the diner's sinister grip tightened? Cold air rushed in, stinging Sarah's face as the light vanished completely. Panic twisted in her stomach, knotting tighter with every fleeting moment of darkness. She could no longer tell up from down. The mocking laughter faded, replaced by an unsettling stillness that pressed against her. Hello? She dared to call out, her voice barely breaking the thick silence that enveloped her. It felt different now, almost alive, swirling around like smoke. A figure brushed past her, ghostly and quick, but just like that, it vanished. She couldn't remember when she last felt solid ground beneath her. With trembling hands, she took a step forward, heart pounding like a frantic drum, echoing in the void. Fear not. A soft voice emerged, muted yet distinctly familiar. The old woman from before? Or perhaps another specter? You must seek the truth within. Only then can you escape. Escape? Sarah whispered, dread rooting her to the spot. Escape from what? From what you've done, and what lies beneath, the voice replied, each syllable dripping with an unsettling calm. It felt like a warning rather than an assurance. Suddenly, the darkness around her shimmered, coiling and unraveling like threads unspooled from a tapestry. Within that darkness, shadows flickered, revealing what appeared to be the diner itself, but twisted and distorted, a nightmare version of reality. The familiar booths stretched and shrank, walls breathing as if alive. Sarah, the laughter transformed into a sinister chant, echoing from every corner. You must choose. We know your darkness. Show us. Sweat beaded on her brow as images emerged before her, alive in the dark. Faces of those she had hurt stared back, the woman from the field, her anguished scream reverberating through the air. The small child, the look of betrayal frozen on his face as the shadows mocked her failures. Blood rushed in her ears, drowning out her thoughts. Face your choices. They cried, their voices blending into a chaotic symphony. You own this pain, it's your legacy. Sarah's mind raced. She wasn't a child anymore. She couldn't keep running. But facing it wouldn't that make it real? Shadows glided closer, their expressions twisted in glee as they tightened around her. I didn't mean to hurt them. She pleaded, desperation clawing at her throat, tears spilling down her cheeks. It was an accident. I didn't choose. The laughter cut through her words, sharp and biting. You chose to hide to bury your secrets. But the truth will rise. It cannot be silenced. As their laughter crescendoed, the visions surged, moments flashing through her mind, lost opportunities, heart-wrenching choices, the faces of the deserted begging for acknowledgement. Each wound a testament to her lies, each gasp of horror a reminder of her failure. Fractured memories began to swirl into one, spinning into a figment of horror. You can't escape! Shrieked the voices around her, crescendoing in a demonic symphony. At that terrifying moment, Sarah felt a shift beneath her feet, a pull, a desire to finally know, to see whatever darkness they wished to reveal. Show me, she found herself whispering, just above a breath. Show me everything. The shadows paused, their malevolent glee palpable. Had she truly crossed a threshold? As the images surged forth like an unstoppable tide, a new thought slashed through her mind. What if knowing her darkness meant awakening something far more sinister? What if the diner was but a facade, and the real monsters lurked beyond the echoes of her past? The dark laughter began again, hurtling her into the depths of forgotten nightmares. But before she could brace for what awaited, a chilling voice hissed from the shadows, "Welcome to your reckoning. The rules of our game have just begun." As blackness closed in once more, Sarah's fate teetered on a precipice. What were the rules? And would she be a pawn, or truly the player? The darkness ebbed and flowed around Sarah like a tide of despair, drowning her in a cold grip. Each breath she took felt heavier, filled with the weight of unacknowledged sins. The shadows whispered to her, the voices of those she had wronged mingling with a low, sinister growl that echoed in her mind. It was almost intoxicating, that thin line between dread and acceptance, until the air shifted again. "Choose your first truth," the eerie voice commanded, resonating from the depths of the void. It sounded less like advice and more like a decree that brooked no dissent. What truth? She gasped, panic riling her thoughts. She could sense eyes watching her, the darkness eager for her answer. Suddenly, a circle of light flared into existence, illuminating a scene from her past. It was the diner again, but not as she remembered. The tables were set for a meal, filled with familiar faces, friends, family, and strangers, all laughing and talking. But something was wrong. Their smiles held mocking undertones. They weren't there for celebration, they were waiting, eyes fixed on her as if anticipating an act of horror. "You led them here," hissed the shadows, the dark laughter spinning tighter around her, their presence like icy fingers curling against her skin. "And you let them stay, knowing what would happen." "That's not true." Sarah cried out, fighting back against the swell of regret threatening to drown her anew. "Then prove it." With a shove of icy dread coursing through her, she stepped forward into the light, the edge of the scene vibrating with energy. The laughter of her loved ones turned to jeering. The faces contorted, transforming into grotesque versions of themselves, eyes wide with anticipation. Each one glared with accusation. They were waiting for the truth, her truth. Face the first choice. They chorused, their voices ascending into a maddening chorus. "Choose your victim." Clenching her fists, Sarah felt each pulse of fear from the past surge forward. Would she relive that moment? The day everything changed? As shadows curled around the edges of the light, images from that night swirled like a tempest. She saw herself, young and naive, lured by whispers of freedom and excitement, driving away from the diner just as the storm hit. She had been reckless. The screech of tires still haunted her dreams. She remembered the sickening thud, the cries that scratched at her memory like nails on a chalkboard. "Choose," the voices beckoned. "Choose who will bear the blame." In that instant, recognition flared. They wanted her to relive that moment, to select someone to carry the weight of her guilt. The child who had crossed the road. The woman who was left shattered on the pavement. The look of terror on the child's face played over and over in her mind, twisting and spiraling into an unbearable burden. "Not me." She shouted, feeling the walls of the dark space pulse with her words. I want to choose. The shadows recoiled, writhing in rage. Then you know what must come next. A surge of psychic energy cracked like thunder, blinding her momentarily. When her sight cleared, she was no longer in the diner. She stood alone on a desolate road, the rain drenching her clothes, with an unsettling silence enveloping her. Welcome to your next trial, the voice echoed around her. The game continues until you play your hand. Far in the distance, the ghostly outline of the diner loomed, pulsing ominously as if it were calling her back. What awaited her now? Would she unlock the secrets of her past, or would she be trapped in this nightmare forever? The road stretched ahead, darkness whispering promises of the unknown as dread coiled within her. The road twisted like a serpent, obscured by torrential rain. Each drop fell heavy, mingling with the sweat that trickled down Sarah's back. She could feel the weight of the shadows pressing in on her, pulsating like a heartbeat, echoing in her ears. The darkness was alive, hungry, and waiting for her next move. Her heart raced. What do you want from me? The words tumbled out in desperation. The emptiness seemed to echo her question back. Your past, the voice purred, oily and slick, slithering through the night like a creeping fog. Your past holds the key. Only by confronting it will you escape. The diner loomed closer, its neon sign flickering ominously in the rain-soaked night. It felt like a siren-esque call, luring her back into the belly of the beast. Memories collided in her mind, echoes of laughter, the sharp slice of a knife in her gut when she thought of what happened that night. Go on, urged the voice, its tone dripping with malice. Enter. Relive your sins. Maybe this time, you won't run away. With a shuddering breath, she stepped onto the pavement in front of the diner, each footfall drenched in dread. The door creaked open, the familiar scent of grease and old coffee flooding her senses. But it was off. The warmth of the diner was replaced by a frigid chill that struck her like an ice pick. Inside, the scene was the same yet eerily different. Her friends sat around the table, their faces blurred in the shadows. They looked just like they had that night. The candles flickered, but their flames twisted into long, brittle fingers reaching toward her, beckoning her in. Welcome back, Sarah, sang a voice that belonged to no one. It was a ghostly chorus, an amalgamation of every face that had been there, all twisted now into something grotesque. Why are you doing this? She shouted, tears spilling down her cheeks. She had spent years trying to bury this moment, yet here she was, back at square one. Because you have to choose. The voice was insistent, relentless. Choose who pays the price or they all will. The patrons around the table began to shift, darkened forms merging and separating, revealing the faces of the ones she had wronged. The child, eyes wide and glazed over with terror. The woman, bloodied and broken. And then there was the worst of them all, her reflection, staring back with accusation, demanding retribution. Remember how you ran? The shadows wheeled in delight, their laughter ringing like a cursed bell. You left them all behind. Face what you've done. Sarah stumbled back, her breath hitching in her throat. I was scared. She cried, the words scrambling out with panic spilling over. It was an accident. I didn't mean to. An accident or a choice? The voice thundered, resonating through the diner's hollow interior. The lights flickered, brightening to illuminate her surroundings. Tension coiled tightly in the air, electric and suffocating. Make your choice, or they will always haunt you. The shadows loomed closer, whispering darkly. You owe it to them, don't you? The weight of their gazes bore down on her, every pair of eyes an endless pit of regret. Was there really any escaping the consequences of her actions? Would her guilt ever unshackle her, or would it continue to tighten its grip until she could barely breathe? As the shadows began to press in, the air turned thick with anticipation. Then came a knock, a frantic rapping from the entrance. The door swung open, revealing a figure silhouetted against the pale light. "Sarah!" The voice called, desperate and frantic. "Get out! You have to get out now." Her heart leaped. Could there be a way out? Or was this just another cruel twist of fate that would drag her back into the dark? The shadows writhed, hunger radiating from them. The diner pulsed with tension that felt ready to snap. Who will it be, Sarah? Choose wisely what lay behind the silhouette, lurking just out of sight. And what price must she pay to escape the nightmare that had gripped her soul? The moment stretched, thick with dread, as the figure in the doorway shifted forward. Sarah squinted against the blinding light, trying to make out who it was. The shadows gnashed their ethereal teeth, swirling around her like a cyclone of sorrow. "Who?" she rasped, desperation clawing at her throat. "Who's there? Your only hope." The silhouette stepped closer, revealing a familiar face smudged with rain and terror. "It's Mark. You have to trust me." Mark? Her mind raced. He was supposed to be safe. He hadn't been there that night, but then again, perhaps that was the point. The shadows hissed, their whispers rising like steam from a boiling pot, pressing in, urging her to choose. "Sarah, listen to me." His voice broke through the cacophony, firm yet shaken. "You can't stay here. It's feeding off your fear. It wants you to relive it." She glanced back at the table. The shadows twisted, her friends' faces buried in the darkness, their lips moving silently. The air thickened with memories she wished would remain buried. "What do I need to do?" She shot back, each word prying her open to the weight of her past. "Face it," Mark insisted. "You have to confront what happened. Only then can you break the cycle. Your choice looms, Sarah." The sinister voice intoned, accosting her ears with a loud glee. "You can save one. Pick wisely, or all shall pay." "Stop it!" she screamed, clenching her fists. "I want to choose between them." The shadows recoiled, as though stung, hesitating for a heartbeat. But the moment was fleeting. Those haunting eyes locked onto her, drawing nearer with glacial slowness. "Sarah, I want you to choose me," Mark called out, stepping boldly into the diner. His face glimmered like a shard of hope amidst the utter blackness that surrounded them. "I don't want to lose you again. You have to believe no," Sarah shouted, cutting him off. She turned to the shadows again, her heart hammering. I can't pick." But the shadows seemed to congeal, their laughter melding into one haunting melody that made her skin crawl. They were thirsting for division, swaying under the weight of her confusion. "Choose," the voice commanded, sending shivers cascading down her spine. In that terrifying moment, the candles flickered once more, casting long shadows that danced along the walls. Sarah felt herself pulled toward the table, her knees trembling. Sunken faces bore into her, silently pleading, accusing, and it nearly drove her mad. "Do you really think waiting will help?" Mark interjected softly, panic bleeding from his voice. "It will only grow stronger. You have to face your guilt. You can't abandon them again." His words wrapped around her mind like an iron chain, forcing her to confront the horrid truth. With each passing second, fear and uncertainty battled inside her chest, constricting her breath. She stepped forward, biting her lip. "If I confront my past, what will happen to you, Mark? What will I lose?" "Only the shackles that bind you." He sounded so certain, but his eyes were wild. "Face what you did." She clenched her jaw, breath hitching. The whispers gathered strength, swirling around her mind like a tempest. Sins of the past clawed at her consciousness. She could either face this nightmare, confront the horror she tried to erase, and risk losing everything, or remain ensnared in the abyss of her making. Time's running out, the shadows taunted, their pull tightening. "Which will it be?" Sarah's heart felt like it would burst, caught between the terrifying specter of regret and the ghost of her once bright future. Just tell me what to do. But the shadows merely laughed, the sound echoing endlessly as the weight of her choice loomed ever larger. Face your guilt, Sarah. They echoed, their words laced with promise and threat. Could she bear the truth? Or would facing her past seal her fate, leaving the others to writhe in darkness without her? The moment hung there, fraught with tension. Then, a crack of thunder exploded outside, shaking the diner to its very foundation. Now! Mark urged, his voice almost a shout against the storm. A storm was brewing, but not just outside. The true tempest loomed within her, and she had to choose: would she succumb to the shadows, or take the desperate leap toward salvation? The darkness stirred, eager for her answer. Whatever she decided, something would be unleashed that night. What awaited her beyond the veil of her memories? And would she survive the wrath that would come for her? Sarah's mind raced, each heartbeat echoing louder than the thunder outside. She searched Mark's eyes for something, any sign of reassurance, but saw only dread reflected back. The shadows shifted restlessly, their laughter a sinister melody threading through the diner, wrapping around her, squeezing the air from her lungs. I can't. She whispered, the weight of her fear threatening to break her. Yes, you can. You have to. Mark's voice crackled with urgency. You must remember what really happened. Only then can we save them. As if spurred by his words, the shadows elongated, swirling like sentient smoke, transforming the diner into a distorted funhouse of memories. She could hear muffled cries, the pain of loss woven into every corner, every flickering candle casting faint silhouettes of the past. It felt like a noose tightening around her neck, and she gasped for breath, mind overloaded with horror. Remember, the voice beckoned, deep and resonant, taunting her with a cruel kindness. Face the echoes of your guilt. The shadows began to weave themselves into familiar shapes, her friends' faces emerging from the darkness, eyes wide with anguish, mouths moving but producing only silence. Sarah staggered back, overwhelmed. She couldn't take it, she wouldn't let herself. But one face caught her attention, a pair of familiar, pleading eyes that sliced through the fog of her dread like a beacon. Jessica. Her best friend, lost in the dark memory of that night, begging to escape the grip of their shared horror. Help us, Sarah, no. Sarah cried out, her scream piercing the air, lashing against the shadows. She covered her ears, falling to her knees, but they only pressed closer, hungry for her tears, their laughter echoing in a chilling harmony. Confront your failure, the deep voice echoed again, reverberating off the walls. Or lose them forever. Stop. She shouted, feeling small and powerless against the relentless tide of her emotion. Rage mixed with despair, surging within her like boiling water. How could she confront the past without sinking deeper? Face it. Mark urged again, stepping closer. You can do this, Sarah. You have to believe it's not your fault. She lifted her head, staring into those dark, swirling depths, then suddenly, something shifted. The memories began to spiral faster, a relentless whirlpool threatening to drag her under. What if I can't? Her voice trembled. What if I lose you both? Think of what you've already lost. Mark's voice was a whip crack, sharp and echoing against the storm outside. Tell me what to do. She screamed into the darkness, the last shred of her sanity teetering on a precipice. The shadows twined together, forming a massive figure at the edge of the diner, an embodiment of her fears, a monstrous creation birthed from regret and despair. It loomed in the doorway, cold darkness spilling like ink from its body. Submit, it hissed, a voice that felt like crawling fingers on her skin. No. Sarah roared, adrenaline igniting her defiance. She stood on shaky legs, resolved despite her fear. I will not give in. Then, in that boiling moment of resolve, the shadows deepened around her, the storm outside howling in response. Face your choices, Sarah. The entity howled, its voice rising above the tempest. Your friends' fates hang in the balance. Lightning split the sky, illuminating their faces, those who were lost, and those she could still save. And just like that, Sarah knew what she had to do. As she braced to confront her past, the diner walls seemed to tremble, urging her onward. What revelations awaited in the shadows, and could breaking free from her guilt shatter the curse that haunted this place? But then came another crack of thunder, and the storm responded with a fury as if sensing her choice. With every ounce of strength, she prepared her heart for the truth, wondering if she could handle the darkness that lay ahead. What secret would be unveiled, and would the shadows finally break free to claim their due? The air crackled with a tension so thick it could cloak a city. Sarah squared her shoulders, her breathing ragged as she faced the looming entity of her fears. Its presence filled the diner, enveloping her in a suffocating haze of regret and self-loathing. She could hear her friends' voices, their anguished cries piercing through the darkness like shards of glass. Sarah, you have to choose. You owe it to us. With the shadows swirling around her, she stepped closer to them, heart hammering. I refuse to let you die again. She shouted, the truth spilling from her lips like a floodgate bursting. None of it was my fault. I didn't choose to hurt you. Yet you carry the weight anyway, the shadows hissed, curling around her legs, taunting her. You didn't choose to care, to act. You ran, always ran. The memories poured in like a sudden storm, swift and overwhelming. She felt the sting of long-forgotten words cutting through the air, thick with blame, heavy with consequence. A flicker of guilt ignited inside her, flaring bright against the darkness closing in. They weren't wrong. She had turned her back on them, allowed her fears to spiral into isolation. Your fears bind you. The deep voice echoed, resonating through the diner's hollow spaces. Face the truth or watch them all perish. Each pulse of darkness sent arrows of doubt through her heart. Your failure is greater than the storm, the past whispered. Face it or lose everything. Gripping her order pad, she remembered why she had come to the diner that night, the terrible moments that changed everything. It had been a choice, a reckless blend of hope and despair. Bottled emotions let loose on a rain-soaked road. But there, amidst the crashing waves of torment, she thought of Mark, thought of Jessica, and the small child whose laughter once filled her world with light. Enough, she finally said, summoning every ounce of courage to confront the creature of her regret. I know what I did, and I'm ready to face it. The shadows howled in tandem, their wails filling the diner with a cacophony of accusations. You're too late, Sarah. They chorused. You're not strong enough to change the past. But she would not yield. With every scream that escaped her lips, the storm inside her swirled and coiled, and she channeled it to propel herself forward. I can't change what happened, she shouted, voice steadier now, but I can choose how to hold on to it. Lightning split the churning sky outside, illuminating the diner in a brilliant flash, ensuring her friends would never be erased, that their memories would live within her forever. They were not burdens, but the lessons waiting for acknowledgement. Choose then. The shadows demanded, powerful fingers bared, seeking to crush her resolve. Choose between freedom and sacrifice. The moment stretched taut, a tautness that belied the truth at its core. Sarah's chest tightened. If she had to choose, she would choose love. The love she had surrounded herself with, the love that persisted despite the hurt. I choose to remember. I choose to forgive. She roared defiantly against the tempest, unleashing the weight of her painful confession. You won't take those I love from me. I choose to face my past, and I will not let the darkness take root again. The shadows recoiled as if struck. The diner trembled, her declaration shattering the confines of despair like shattered glass across a floor. Color began to bleed back into the room, allowing warmth and light to seep through the enveloping darkness. Forgiveness? The deep voice faltered, uncertainty creeping into its rancid tone. You dare claim such a thing? Yes. She cried, her resolve solid like granite amidst the crashing tide. I will forgive myself for being human. I will embrace my mistakes and move forward. With that proclamation, the darkness twisted and writhed, its howl morphing into an agonized screech that echoed throughout the diner. The shadows that had once seemed so powerful began to thin, breaking apart as light poured in. She felt the burden lift, the diner's oppressive energy fading as its grip weakened. Around her, the diner transformed, returning to its normal state, a worn structure brimming with life once more. She sensed her friends with her, their warmth shining through the shadows like a dawn breaking after a protracted night. Sarah Jessica's soft voice pierced the remnants of darkness, their faces emerging from the gloom. A visage of hope replaced their pained expressions, and acceptance of her journey, and forgiveness as tangible as a handshake. I'm so sorry. I should have never left you, Sarah whispered, her heart breaking, tears streamed down her face. Please, but Jessica stepped forward, the tenderness in her gaze undeniable. You've faced it, and so have we. We understand. The past can hurt, but it only lives if you let it. Mark's presence followed Jessica's, the light in his eyes grounding her. He reached for her hand. Now we can move forward together. You're not alone in this, Sarah. As the dark dissipated, the voices of the shadows melted into whispers of the past, fading into echoes she could finally share rather than bear in silence. The diner around her flickered with renewed energy, the walls echoing with soft laughter and the promise of hope rather than despair. Freedom had emerged from the shackles of guilt, and clarity shone like a beacon to guide her. As the neon sign outside dimmed to a gentle glow, casting a warm ambience through the windows, Sarah embraced her friends, feeling their warmth merge with the remnant electricity of her choices. Let us go, Sarah, Mark urged tenderly. We've got a life to live. And together, they stepped into the light, leaving the weight of the past behind them, forging their paths anew, each heartbeat resonating with the resolve to honor the lost while cradling the promise of redemption, of love enduring against the creeping shadows. The midnight diner would hold its secrets like a grave, but they had triumphed over the very darkness that sought to consume them. Together, they walked away, bound by the indestructible ties of love and hope. Now, we need to talk action. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and share your support. I want to hear from you, so flood the comments section below with your wild reactions and theories about this intense conclusion. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Only true fans know how important it is to support the channel, so take action now.